catch me howling at the moon.
How's your day going?
It's going well. Had a call already this morning, went to the gym this morning. So
yeah,
staying active.
So what's the rules to go inside of a gym right now?
So they just recently changed it. So you actually have to wear a mask at all times.
Oh.
Yeah, which makes it a little tough when you're doing cardio. but
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so I live in Bowie, Maryland. So I go to Gold's Gym right up in Crofton. And, they have the staff that are just routinely just going throughout the gym, re-cleaning and re-wiping down all the equipment. So, that's reassuring. But, you still see a couple people in there that aren't really wearing the mask, covering their nose, just covering half their mouth. It's a little all over the place.
Yeah. Looking back, do you ever imagine how we're still alive, considering how dirty stuff was before?
Exactly. It's funny too, because today when I was working out on a machine, I had a guy come up to me and was like, "Can I work out with you?" I'm just like, "No, we're not doing that right now." I actually looked at him like he was crazy. I'm like, "Are you serious?" Like, no. And then he kept insisting. I was like, "Dude, I'm not about that shit right now."
No, it's funny when you have to be kind of blunt about it. No pun intended, but I was actually at someone's house and they kept looking at me. I was smoking a blunt and I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "You're not going to pass that?" I'm like,
"Oh no.
What? No.
Yeah.
I didn't like passing before, and now this is a perfect excuse." So I was like,
yeah,
not today.
Yeah, the days of communal sessions are just they're delayed right now.
Yep, it's puff puff, don't pass.
Right, unless I know you.
Yeah, that is true. COVID test, I need to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you from Maryland originally?
Yeah, I'm from South Anne Arundel County, so I grew up in Lothian. A lot of people don't know what Lothian is, so I say Calvert County. So I grew up on 3 acres, horses, cows, and all that good stuff in the backyard. So I'm a country boy by heart.
Nice. And I saw pictures of you at a hemp farm. Maybe I was stalking your Facebook.
No, that's fine. Yes. Yeah. So the hemp farm is the owner of Walt Ramata, who is the owner of Mind Buzz.
Yeah.
So, I'm just trying to learn any and everything about this industry. And so, Walt and his Mind Buzz team were very instrumental in our launch event. And so when he told me he had a hemp farm, I was like, "Hey, I'll give you free labor in exchange for knowledge." And he was like, "That works for me."
It's cool, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I went to a hemp farm once just to work for the day. I was like, you could totally make money off of this. Like people living in the city to come and, because it smells like cannabis. It looks like cannabis. It's like, and I took a nap in the plants. I was like, oh yeah, you could charge so much money for this.
Yeah, it's funny because his property is right across the Maryland-Pennsylvania line. If you shoot up 83. And he's been making jokes, but it's actually a reality. People are driving by because he's off a main road, and they start to slow down when they get close to his field because they're like, "What is that growing over there?"
That doesn't look like tomatoes.
Exactly. I was like, "Walt, you might need to invest in some security or some very big dogs."
There's a grower in Ocean City where they have an outdoor part, and you can see it from 50. So if you just kind of look to the side, occasionally you will see nice big cannabis plants out there just from the road. Yeah, so it's really Shore Naturals is the grow that has that. So how did you hop into cannabis? Is your app the first toe into it, or have you been around for a minute?
Yeah, so the app is the first, introduction into the industry. But, I've been involved with cannabis, using cannabis, ever since I was 15. In 2003, I was involved in a very bad car accident
Mm-hmm.
that nearly took my life. I have a long scar on the top of my head, which is the result of 56 staples.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I was actually thrown from the car. I fell asleep at the wheel 5 minutes from my house, how it always happens. Had one of my good friends and my best friend and his girlfriend in the car as well, and they were both knocked out. So I passed out, unfortunately, was thrown about 100 feet, uh,
Wow.
cracked my head, screwed my back up really bad. And so, after getting out of the hospital, I was put on all these different opioids. And after about 2 years of using all these different opioids, the monkey got on my back very quick.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time, who was my now wife, was like, "Man, you're starting to look like Pookie out here." She's like, "You're scratching like crazy. And if you don't have your pills, you're like irritable." And so I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. And so I
Yeah.
completely cut off the opioids and just focus using cannabis in order to mitigate my pain. Uh,
Yeah.
and so at that time, cannabis wasn't legal in any of the states. And so I was working at Constellation Energy selling solar at that time. And I stayed at Constellation Energy all the way up until I left last year to focus on Tetragram full time. So once Maryland opened up their medical market, I jumped at the opportunity, got my card. And when I went into a dispensary, I was just completely overwhelmed because, given my, the street dealing, you're just very familiar with THC.
Yep. Yep.
And so when bud tenders were talking to me about different terpenes and cannabinoids and then, CBD and all these different delivery methods besides smoking a blunt, which is what always been my go-to, I was
Yes,
like,
I know.
yeah. I was like, man, I got a lot to learn. And so, I spent about a year and a half just researching the industry, trying to figure out how I was going to get involved. And I saw the big knowledge gap when it came to this general information. So after talking with different patients and doctors and everybody really just self-diagnosing themselves and using journals, so there's got to be an easier way. And so that's when I came up with had the light bulb idea to say, why can't we put this on everybody's phone?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of the most complex parts about cannabis when you're trying to bring someone new into it is explaining to them how they need to figure out what works for them, because
Sure.
it's not something you're taught. Like, I mean, you don't go to the doctor and they're like, we're going to try you out at this, and if this doesn't feel good, and write this down. I mean, we're pretty much used to people just giving us medicine,
Right.
telling us what to do with it. And so, yeah, I mean, that was probably the hardest thing for me to learn and understand is like, especially since I'm treating anxiety, there's stuff that can cause panic attacks. And so to go through the process, that's what it was. It was writing down. Well, actually, it was taking in notes, right? So I did it on my phone, just kind of regularly through a
Sure.
notepad. So tell us about the app. So we can get into the history of it a little bit, just so everyone has some context while you talk about it. What does the app do?
Yeah, so the app very simply allows patients, whether you're a medical patient or a recreational user, to keep track of all the products you purchase, but more importantly, keep track of all the different terpenes and cannabinoids associated with those products.
Yeah.
Because, that's the real holy grail of the products. The strain name or the packaged product really has zero
Yeah.
bearing. And so we allow the patient to enter in that information. And then also they're able to say, all right, so I made this purchase at, XYZ dispensary. So they're able to keep track of where they made that purchase. And then more importantly, we drill down even deeper in allowing the consumer to actually state, how they consume that product. So was it inhaled? Was it topically? Was it orally? And then we have unit of measurements that allows them to say, I took 2 hits, 10 hits, I had 6, 7 milligrams, whatever the case may be. Also associate that with a particular medical condition if they are a medical patient.
Mm-hmm.
So as they log that session, they can say, I'm looking to treat PTSD or fibromyalgia. And then there's a pain scale in there as well. So you can rate your pain before use, after use, and then take photos, which is really cool because, in this day and age, everybody captures photos and talks with photos these days.
Yeah.
So we definitely wanted to incorporate that too. And then they can write detailed notes associated with that product. So as they hit save, they really have their own digital diary where they can say, man, what was that product I had last week that really worked well? Or vice versa. What was that product I had last week that kept me up all day and had severe anxiety? So this makes it easier for people to resort back to information.
So I just have a few questions.
Please.
Can you do multiple pictures? So like a picture of because I'm just thinking of cool ways and issues that I've seen in the community outside of just like being able to journal it, but serious things that kind of like hinder people either getting access to their medicine or the right kind. So my first thought was like every batch is different, right? And to your point earlier.
Exactly.
So I think, the magic I learned was like a ratio of pinene to myrcene doesn't really matter what it is. As long as I have this much myrcene to pinene, I'm not going to have a panic attack for whatever reason. That just kind of like works it out for me. So for them to take a picture of the label or even be able to enter a batch number that they could reference a COA later would be like such a cool, that's on the user to do, but maybe in the training too, for them to track actually what those terpenes are percentage wise, what it is, compared to the next time they may get that batch with it.
Yeah. So you're exactly right. So when people log a session, they're able to include 3 pictures in each session. Because right now, as you mentioned, it's just all over the place. Like cannabis is such a complex plant that it's hard to replicate it the exact same each time. And so each batches will have variations. And so right now you have to enter in those terpenes and cannabinoids manually. But we are working on technology that will incorporate that data automatically for the patient.
Oh.
But in the time,
that's very exciting.
Exactly, because data is only going to be as useful as accurate it is, and so I'm sure as you type and as I type, I know especially I'm still using the 2 fingers. I enter in stuff wrong all the time, and so the photo capturing method is something that we're working on right now to enter in that information a lot easier. But in the time being, we give people the ability to take photos of those labels so that they can capture that information there too.
Yeah, I think that's just so key. And it's something that if you've only ever purchased cannabis from the legacy market, you don't know that, right?
Exactly.
If you were to go back to the legacy market after you've learned a little bit and saying, I'm looking for a little more Lulinol they'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
But I think that's just part of the education process that happens. What about for like the information that they capture? Is there like an aggregator for them to like understand trends for them? So, I have a Whoop band and, every week, every month I get this kind of like aggregation of my like sleep. So, this is what you did for the month. Is there any reporting like your pain levels before you've been consuming versus after consuming and being able to pull that apart looking at different strains? Am I getting just way too deep right now?
No, you're fine. So that doesn't currently exist right now where people can actually draw reports in the app. But that's something that we're going to be working on in the future right now, actually, because, we're a bootstrap company. We use all our own personal finances in order to build it.
So I know about that.
Yeah, exactly. The struggle is real,
Yeah.
So, we built it and addressed the immediate need, which is just giving patients or recreational users the ability to keep track of information. But as we speak, we're working as we get more money in to develop new features that would give people the ability to have these like waterfall charts and so forth, so they can actually draw better conclusions.
Oh, I think that's like the missing piece in all of this is like, that's why journaling is so important, is you have to be able to look back and start to see those trends and what's happening. What do you think this information could do to better assist the industry in creating and picking better strains for people? Because I feel like it's a little shot in the dark right now, right? It's all based, I think, and my perspective is like, if something sells a lot, they continue to grow that.
Yep.
They don't maybe necessarily know why that thing sells a lot.
Exactly. And so that's one of the things, there's numerous things that we can do with the aggregation of this data. If you look at it from the cultivators, product manufacturers perspective, like you mentioned, if they have a strain that sells very well, they really have no idea why it's selling well. Yeah. They're happy about it. But that at the end of the day, they're not able to draw any conclusions as to why it's selling well. And vice versa. If it's not selling well, they're just like, well, we're not going to grow that again and leave it at that. But through Tetragram, as we collect this data and people are starting to say, hey, I use, Blue Dream by XYZ grower in order to help with my fibromyalgia. And we show that like 75,000 people are using that particular strain in order to assist them with a particular medical condition. That makes it very powerful for not only the consumer, but also the manufacturer, because they're able to utilize that data to market it appropriately. Educate bud tenders on, okay, so we've got 200,000 some people using this particular product for this, so this is how you can address it. Because I've worked in a dispensary. That's one of the first things I did when I left my job at Constellation, was get a job at a dispensary, because I wanted to understand the process through a consumer's lens on how the purchase decision is made. And so, with bud tenders having, I think last report I read was like 80% impact on a person's purchase decision, that's huge. And, a lot of times as a bud tender, unfortunately, we're just throwing darts at the wall, hoping something is going to work for the patient based upon the education we have. But if we're able to provide dispensaries with this data as well, so that they can say, hey, this customer or these X amount of users are using this type of product that has this much myrcene or this much limonene in order to treat a particular medical condition, they can really help achieve, find positive results for people at the end of the day. Because the thing I don't want to do, and the thing I don't want to see, which unfortunately happens, is, a customer comes in and you can see it in their eyes. They're like, got complete hope, like, help me now. And they're really relying on these bud tenders in order to assist them. And so, if you make a bad product recommendation and that customer has a negative experience, you not only affected the experience for just that one customer, but for about 8 or 9 other people, because they're going to tell that many folks. And then that keeps that negative stigma about cannabis alive, which is something we're trying to combat every day.
Yeah, the first time someone uses cannabis, there needs to be like an education, like way more for them to even understand, right? It even took me a minute to realize like the tingling in my face, that's just kind of part of some strains. And there's nothing like weird about that. And if you don't have an experienced consumer around you, that can be very scary to someone of any age, but even especially someone who is change their mindset about cannabis and giving this like one last ditch attempt. And they're already coming with so much stigma. And the first thing, because the person wants to make a sale or they have no idea, is they give them some high THC percentage, and that just, that's it.
Exactly. Like, I get mortified anytime a customer comes in and like, I got severe pain, and I found out that they were recommended like RSO. I'm like, whoa, like, that is not the first approach you should take for that customer. So, we're just looking to solve all these gaps through data. And so I actually published it on my Instagram yesterday. I read an article that a majority of patients don't believe that their doctors are knowledgeable enough to assist them in cannabis use.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and you know that, I know that, so that's another area with the aggregate data that we collect that we're looking to help these doctors better understand the effects of cannabis use, both positive and negative, so that they can help their patients out better.
And they then become more knowledgeable then to help educate doctors and who they're
Exactly.
talking to, so they can have just a more like, I don't know, it just helps me. But to be able to go in and explain terpenes and how these terpenes affect this and what the entourage affects may start to help change the medical system and their thoughts towards cannabis, especially journaling it. I think that takes it to like the next level for someone to review.
Surely, because there's just so much anecdotal evidence out there. Like somebody, if you look at different reviews on other platforms, it's like, this tincture worked well, I slept great. Well, that really doesn't tell me enough. I need to know a little bit more information.
Yeah.
So we're looking to capture all that and really help people, open a lens and finding what's working for them.
When did this all start? Like let's talk a little bit now more about the struggle from like when you started to come up with this idea, where you are now, and what's been some of your like biggest challenges to get this out the door.
How much time do we have?
I mean, I have nothing, so go for it.
So, it started 6 years. It started 6 years ago. So when Maryland opened up their market and I knew I was going to get involved, I spent 2 years just canvassing the cannabis industry by myself, trying to find out where the niche market was, how I was going to position myself, and so forth. And so I attended MJ Biz conferences, 3 years consecutively, just about any and all small networking groups I attended. And so I said, bingo, the gap is the information. And so, again, by talking to other patients, they were using journals and stuff like that. And I was like, we can make this easier. So after I decided, okay, we're going to focus on a digital journal, the next step for me was to find the IT side because, my whole background has been in sales. Constellation, whether I was selling there or when I built my first company that put me through college, which was aggressive detailing, it's all sales driven. And so I didn't really have an IT background. So after finding out what I wanted to do, I spent like another year trying to find the right partners that could help me build out the IT side. After several iterations, different engagements with people, I finally landed my partners today, which are Julius Moore and Lucas Rowe, which I'm extremely grateful for because they have very brilliant minds around building technology. So once the three of us got together, we just put down a game plan. I said, I can handle the sales side. I just need you guys to work on the IT side and we'll hash out the ideas and so forth. Luckily for me, I had a pretty great career at Constellation Energy, made some really great money. And so I was banking all of this money while I was building out this idea. And so fast forward and, we built the product, we released it on July 10th. But the real struggle, I would say, was just initially just finding the right partners. Yeah. And then after that, the struggle became, the struggle that's around the world now, COVID. So, so because, we spend so much time building the platform and, I don't want to bore you with so many details, but we've hired contractors to help out with certain pieces that my partners couldn't handle. And sometimes they worked out great. Sometimes they completely flatlined. So it was a lot of give and take. Like, man, should we continue to go down this road? Because we're having so much trouble building this thing, trying to, use outside resources for certain portions of it. But long story short, we got it to the finish line through the help of Todd Marks and his team at MindGrub. They helped assist in putting on some of the final touches for Tetragram. So that was a huge milestone. But again, COVID is the biggest issue right now from an investor standpoint, because currently the financial industry is it's flatline. Nobody's really making any moves unless, you're revenue generating.
Yes.
And since we aren't, it makes it very challenging. I mean, people love our technology. I did a 10-minute pitch video for ArcView, and they were like, this is great technology. It's just unfortunate that the timing isn't particularly right to gain investor interest.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest challenge throughout this whole journey and where we are currently. But, I will say that COVID has a silver lining for us, because when we finally got the product built, we were like, now we're in COVID. Should we even launch it? But after talking to a lot of people, I feel like, and I think statistics show this in terms of the amount of people downloading the app every day. People are really paying close attention to their health, whether it's mental health or physical health. So it actually was a great time for us to launch Tetragram.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is only one thing that matters, and it's your health, right? There's no amount of money that can fix if you get sick. And so I agree. I've seen, either complete disregard or doubling down on eating better, working out, making sure that, their bodies are in good condition. That makes perfect sense as to why you would see more and more downloads. So everyone can just go to the App Store, download it.
Exactly. So it's completely free for Apple and Android devices. There's no charge to do so, because again, we built this out of passion. And so, I'm a patient. My two business partners are patients. So one of the things that we always harp on is that, this is built for patients by patients. We didn't want to make something too cumbersome that it felt like a homework assignment. We wanted to make it fun and engaging for people to enter in this information. But one thing that's been really cool too is like the community side of Tetragram. So, besides being able to keep track of your own personal information and products that you use, it has a communal piece, so that if you wish, after you save a session, a pop-up window appears and it says, do you want to share this with the community?
Oh.
And that's been really cool to see. Like every day I'm checking it, probably a little too much, but I'm checking it just to see what products people are using and what they're using it for. So that's really cool. And, we're going to build on that too. As well.
I just got how you're making money. This information will eventually make money. I think that information is like completely valuable on both ends. And I love that. Do you have a Whoop band? Do you know what one of those is?
What was that?
A Whoop band. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
So it's a like rest and recovery tracker. So it just with what your strain is all day, and it's very customized to who you are. And so a lot of top athletes use it, and I have some sleeping problems, and so it's suggested like I get this because it does a good job tracking it. And it has done more for my understanding of sleep patterns because of like the reporting side of it. And it's made me look at my life that way in a lot of ways, to see like different patterns, because we do create patterns. And it was easily found out that my sleep is significantly worse starting 5 days before my period. Never would I have caught that like correlation if I wasn't tracking every single day. And so it just kind of is what it is. But because of that, then I started to recognize other things. Oh, I get a migraine kind of around this time, and it's all based on hormones. And I've been able to then use strains knowing that 5 days before is when I really only need indicas in my life, because that's when I, don't sleep. And so I think if the biggest lesson we can learn as a community is to utilize something like this, and to really like, as we consume cannabis, think about how we feel. Like, instead of just, I think sometimes people consume cannabis and they're on their phone scrolling, they're on a phone call. Maybe it's like consume cannabis and meditate on your body. as you
Sure.
like feel how that goes through.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, the community side is so important because, it's very encouraging to hear other people and have them share their stories about, hey, this is what's worked well for me. And they've drawn those correlations just based upon, I've used this and it seems to work well. I've used this and it doesn't work as effective. And so, we're actually going to open up that communal side where people can actually do direct engagement and stuff like that as well. So, you could create it with silos based upon a particular medical condition so that people suffering, that way people suffering from, PTSD or whatever the case may be can say, hey, let me log into Tetragram, join the PTSD community, and then I can share and see what other people are reported as working.
Yeah. And it's also just a safer venue over Facebook groups, over those still get shut down and information is lost.
Yeah.
From those, there's lots of communities and you can go in there and search, but if you have some jackasses that get it shut down, well, then all of that's gone.
Yeah, you have to tippy toe in those groups too. Like there's only so much you can say. I mean, with Tetragram, it's completely HIPAA compliant. Like when you build your profile, we don't ask for your first or last name. None of those unique identifiers. It's strictly an email address and away you go. Yeah. And so, we really wanted to create a platform because if I look at Tetragram at its maturity, Tetragram is a place where people not only just log sessions and have their own digital journal, but it's also a place where people can communicate with others, cannabis-focused people, but also find like dispensary reviews too, as well as just general product information. As you touched on with the IG and Facebook side, like from a cultivator or product manufacturer's perspective, their hands are really tied in how they can really interact with the consumer. Yeah. And so we want to give those cultivators and product manufacturers the ability to actually have a platform within Tetragram so that if you follow, let's say, I don't know, Nature's Heritage, for example, if you like their products like I do, because I'm a big indica fan, you'll be able to like communicate with Nature's Heritage one-on-one through our platform. So got a lot of cool stuff that we're building out for sure.
Oh, that's cool. When's the, are you, like, they can go to the website to find out more information about it. What's your, like, your social media handles so people can learn more?
So everything is Tetragram app. That's our identifier on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay. And that's where you can find out any and all information. And please connect with us for sure. I will say also that with COVID, it's really made it challenging to connect with the consumer because, we really had a lot of focus, like, again, cultivators and product manufacturers to do pop-up events at the various dispensaries because of all of that heavy foot traffic.
Yeah.
Now that a lot of these dispensaries are curbside, it really, I get why they're doing it because they want to limit interaction and the spread of the virus. But it also puts the consumer at a disadvantage because now they're just looking at the website with no type of recommendations and are just making product purchases. And from our perspective, it makes it hard for us to continue to spread the word about Tetragram, since we can't do pop-ups and be in front of the customer as they enter the store.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that's been really fascinating, ever since we launched, I've been doing my field trips is what I call them. When I just get in my car, I have all my marketing material and I drive around to the different dispensaries in Maryland, and the dispensaries have been very welcoming. They're like, oh my God, this is great. The bud tenders are like, this, finally we have something so that patients are no longer asking me, what did I have last week? So,
yeah.
So they've been very open and very receptive to letting us put a display with flyers in the dispensary so that customers can, learn about it and download the app.
Yeah. How cool would it be if while at the POS station, my phone just entered in exactly what I bought? Do you know what I'm saying? Because then you don't have to fill it in yourself at all. Like if it connect to all those like back end POA, anything to take work out of it would be always where my head's at.
Well, that's funny because you're actually barking up the tree of some stuff we're working on, some point of sale integration.
That's next level. I think that's been a hindrance for anybody journaling. It doesn't matter anything. It's just, teaching people it's simple. You don't have to do a lot of work and effort. Taking away those roadblocks that's just adults for you. That's not cannabis industry. That's if you were doing anything. Yeah. It has to be so simple for it to gain traction. People are so stressed time-wise to add this new habit while they're trying to relax. It just kind of is counterintuitive to them until you figure out how helpful it is to your health.
Yeah, that's one of the great things in terms of feedback that we receive from people who have downloaded the app. Like, man, it's the word that I always hear is so clean, and that's what my partners. I owe all the credit to them in building out the user experience. It's very clean and simple. We really follow the KISS method. Just keep it stupid simple. Don't overcomplicate things because the minute you overcomplicate things, like for example, there's over 100 some different cannabinoids and terpenes, but if we put all those into the app, subconsciously you're going to look at that and say, "Oh hell no!" I'm not entering all that information. So we've only listed the most popular cannabinoids and terpenes that way people are like, "Oh cool, yeah, this isn't too bad."
Yeah.
But I wish I could speak more about that integration. But it's we got some really great stuff coming.
Okay, I'll be keeping an eye out. So community members, they download that. That's how they can help out, use it. Industry members, are they reach out to you for information, how to be a part of it? What's your need now to help push Tetragram forward?
So really just need dispensaries to continue to align with us. One of the things, because I know, like I said, I worked in a dispensary, so I see all the salespeople coming in there trying to sell different software or packaged product stuff all the time. So, one of the things I always say to dispensaries is like, listen, I'm not trying to sell you a subscription service. I built this out of passion strictly to allow patients to better their lives. And so in order for us to continue to grow Tetragram, I just need dispensaries to be on board as well as their bud tenders and pushing the gospel of like, hey, we know you are always asking what strain you bought last time. Why don't you use Tetragram? Because it's only going to benefit the dispensaries the more they push it, as well as the cultivators, because the more data we gather, the better we can assist the industry as a whole.
That's actually such a pain point, I'm sure, for dispensaries. Like, what did I get last time? So having to go back, look it up to assist that customer in their process, which I'm sure nobody minds. But man, if you had an educated consumer, it does make the transaction better for everybody.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we're looking to work on, well, we are working on it, but we're going to be rolling it out, but we need more people to continue to log sessions, is machine learning. So, as you start to log your sessions, the Tetragram will actually start to identify the different terpenes and cannabinoids that you rated working really well. And then it can make product recommendations for you because, we've always been in that scenario where we go into a dispensary, we find a product we like, and we buy the hell out of it. And then a week later, we come back and it's no longer available. You can't find it anywhere. And it's like, you got to wait till it's harvested again, if it is. So, the next thing a customer says is, well, what's close to it? I don't know. I don't know what that terpene profile looked like on that last batch. So again, capturing all that information is only going to assist everybody in making their lives easier.
Yeah, this is so cool. I am so excited I downloaded it a few days ago. So Sweet. I will take my own advice and I'm going to start using it because I want to see kind of the evolution of this as well. But I appreciate you being on the show today and talking about it. Send me over all your stuff so I can do a post or something to direct people to start downloading it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you all of our social media links, and I really appreciate your time today.
Of course.
I've been looking forward to this, so
yeah,
I've been following you.
My apologies about Facebook Messenger. It's probably the worst of the DMs because it gets lost so easily. And so then I have a moment where I'm sitting there smoking a blunt and I'm like, I was having this conversation and I don't recall an ending. And then I scroll down. I'm like, oh, my bad.
No worries. I'm the same. Like, I've only started using social media as I built this company, because prior to that, I'd never used social media, but I know how important it is from a business perspective.
Yeah.
When you're engaging with consumers. So, I'm a little rusty too, trust me.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to handle for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the show again, and we'll catch up soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll talk to you later.